we go from the sublime to the ridiculous. Derek Chisora versus Dillian Whyte, one of the best heavyweight fights you'll see in the context of the modern heavyweight division, is followed by Anthony Joshua versus Eric Molina. Unfortunately, the fight was uninspiring when it was announced. It was uninspiring throughout the build-up, and it was a very, very uninspiring fight. Eric Molina really offered very, very little tonight, I'm afraid. He was extremely negative. He was extremely low output. He gave the appearance of someone who just came to make the distance, you know, for the early rounds. He was very, very, didn't really look like he had much of a will to win. Joshua just sort of peppered him behind the jab for the first 2 rounds, was cool, calm, composed. In the 3rd round, Joshua came out with a bit more aggression. Looked like he was going to raise the pace a bit. Connected with a big right hand on Molina, which resulted in a very, very heavy knockdown. Molina just about makes the count, and then Joshua was able to wipe him out, and the referee rightly stops in. Wasn't competitive. Molina, I don't recall landing a punch of any note on Anthony Joshua, and it was a real one-sided fight here. Unfortunately, if we look at Anthony Joshua's last couple of fights, Molina, Brazil, Martin, it's actually difficult to think of a single punch that those 3 opponents have actually landed on Anthony Joshua. Now, there's 2 ways of looking at that. If you're glass half full, you can say that's because Anthony Joshua is performing so clinically, and Anthony Joshua is in such devastating form that he's running through this level of opposition. If you're glass half empty, you could say that it's because the level of opponent Anthony Joshua is in with is simply too low. And I've got to be honest, it's uninspiring to see this level of opponent. You know, I know Molina put in a spirited performance against Deontay Wilder. I know Molina was coming off a career high win against Thomas Ademic, but let's be honest, Molina really had nothing but a puncher's chance to beat Anthony Joshua. Molina isn't a marketable character. He isn't a great stylist in the ring. He isn't a great talker outside of the ring. I saw very little that Molina actually brought to the table to make this a big fight. And unfortunately, having just sat through Chisora Whyte, which was such a great fight, that build-up only served to highlight what an actual disappointment this was as a world title fight. And I think sooner rather than later, fans are going to grow tired of being asked to pay 17 quid for a fight of this nature. Let's be honest, there was a time earlier on in the week where there were heavy rumours that Whyte Chisora was about to be called off. And had that fight been off the bill, and had people still been asked to pay £17 for this card, which presumably they would have been, we would have a lot of very, very unhappy people tonight. Because that Whyte Chisora fight will cause amnesia, but let's be honest, a lot of the build-up fights, the Scott Quigg fight, the Kalia 5 fight, the Callum Smith fight, a lot of those perhaps failed to catch fire and failed to lead to sort of memorable clashes in the way that you would hope in the build-up to a night like this. So, yeah, very, from Joshua's performance, you have to say Joshua went and did what he needed to do. He took care of Molina with consummate ease. He was very professional. He was very disciplined. He did what I thought he'd do, which was completely control the fight at range, not necessarily take risks, get the jab pumping, control the distance, stay out of trouble. He was very wary of Molina's power. And it was a very, very, very professional performance from Joshua. Joshua weakened and loosened Molina up behind that jab, waited for the gap to appear, and when the gap appeared, Joshua surgically, clinically took the ending with a big right hand. Joshua did very well. There's no criticism on Anthony Joshua here. But right now, we just happen to know he's above a Molina. He's above a Brazil. I'm not saying he needs to be thrown straight in with a Deontay Wilder or someone of that nature. But there is a class of heavyweights who sit below the top 5 in the world and who sit above the Molinas and Brazils of that world. And, you could name several heavyweights who fit into that group. Kubrat Pulev, Bermain Stavern, Johan de Par, Bermain Stavern, Carlos de Cam. I could probably think of a few more if I put time into it. But, we perhaps need to see a fighter who carries more threat than Molina for us to believe that this is in any way a competitive fight going forward. One of the more entertaining elements of the fight was actually David Haye's commentary. We're so used to the Sky commentary team being somewhat sided to their fighter and being somewhat on the same side as the guy who is the home fighter. David Haye was very, very critical of what was going on in there tonight. He was slating Molina's negativity. Adam Smith tried to say, oh, this is heavyweight boxing, you've got to be careful. Remember when Oliver McCall threw that Hail Mary punch and took out Lennox Lewis? And David Haye just cut across him and said, no, let's be honest. Those sort of things only happen if someone actually throws a punch, and Molina's far, far too negative. He looks very scared. David Haye really, really stuck it on Sky, Adam Smith and Matchroom as to what a poor performance this actually was from Eric Molina, and what a poor opponent Eric Molina was being in there. It'll be interesting to see if they have him back on Sky commentary after that, because David Haye was fairly pointed. Vladimir Klitschko was ringside. There's a lot of talk that Anthony Joshua will face Vladimir Klitschko next up. I am actually sceptical as to whether that fight will happen. I've always been sceptical as to whether that fight will happen. You may recall, if you're a long-time viewer, that even when it was practically confirmed that Joshua would be fighting Klitschko late 2016, I was constantly saying, I just don't believe it, I just don't believe it. And still, I'm unsure. I'm really unsure as to whether that fight goes ahead. I don't know if Vladimir Klitschko offers risk-reward to Anthony Joshua. If Anthony Joshua were to beat Vladimir Klitschko, people would say, Klitschko's in his 40s. Klitschko's had loads of injuries. Klitschko's been inactive for 18 months. Klitschko already got beaten by Tyson Fury. It'd be different if Klitschko had never lost to Tyson Fury. But now he has got that defeat on his record. Now he is older. Now he's been so inactive. It's less of a scalp. So, is the reward there? No. Klitschko also doesn't come with the belts. Klitschko has long been associated as the unified champion. He's lost that now. So is that reward really there in terms of legacy, in terms of what it means? I doubt it. But for me, the risk really is there. Klitschko, I genuinely believe, to still be a top heavyweight. He is leagues above the best person that Anthony Joshua's faced. He carries huge power. He's also a massive guy. I haven't seen him next to Anthony Joshua recently, but Klitschko brings a reach and a range that Joshua's, that would rival Joshua's. Now, I know Joshua's faced that before against Dominic Breazeale, against Gary Cornish, etc., but Vladimir Klitschko, even at 40, is just a different level of beast to those guys in terms of power, in terms of technique, in terms of discipline, in terms of structure. So for me, that's a fight that I'm sceptical as to whether it will actually happen. I'm recording this straight after the fight, so it may be that Eddie Hearn announces live on Sky that it's already been confirmed. But regardless, I'll believe it when I see both guys stepping into the ring. I'm dubious as to whether that fight goes ahead. It's never quite added up for me, and I think there's a high chance that Vladimir Klitschko would cause the upset if that fight did go ahead, I'm afraid. Joshua is improving. He is vastly improved from the fighter he was coming up in his early fights. He's a lot less rigid, a lot less robotic. He's matured. He's very calm and collected in there. He obviously hits very hard. He's very precise. He's extremely athletic. There's a lot to like about Anthony Joshua's performance. Fights like this don't teach us anything, unfortunately, and fights like this are the kind of fights that are going to put people off paying the pay-per-view sums. So I'm interested to see who he's going to fight next. Unfortunately, a fight like this generates more conversation and more topics as to who his next opponent will be, as opposed to conversation about the actual fight itself. Molina was hopelessly outgunned, hopelessly overmatched, and really offered very, very little in the context of this fight. So, who do you want to see Anthony Joshua in with next? How do you rate him in the context of the heavyweight division at the minute? And what were your thoughts on this performance? I think Molina was pretty woeful in there, I've got to admit, but you can only beat what's put in front of you. Anthony Joshua had Molina put in front of him, and I don't really think Joshua could have handled Molina any better than he did, to be fair to him. He handled Molina a lot smarter than Deontay Wilder did, and it was a very disciplined, structured performance. So credit to AJ, still world champion. Let me know your thoughts, people. Please leave your comments in the section below. Do take the time to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel if you're new, so you can check out all of my other stuff. Many thanks for watching, guys.